Another day, another try. um, yeah, I was thinking about this outdoor stuff, I mean, yeah, making all these outdoor videos. It all started up as a bit a hype, isn't it? With Ray Meir and all this fancy stuff years ago. So it actually went a bit into the mainstream, and lots of people they got their stuff to put onto it and share their experience and how to behave in outdoor and what you can do. And the majority, yeah, they're talking about gimmicks and toys and yeah, it's all nice and forces the industry to produce more of this stuff and making money on it. And for most of the people, it's probably perfectly all right and basically paying for a dream, isn't it? But well, something well lacking out in daily life. So well, if I recall, well, go back to my youth, this sort of what people are talking about today, like as a new wisdom, sort of, it actually was sort of common knowledge, let's say 50 years ago, 40 years ago, yeah. We just did it. I mean, we just went out with the bare minimum we had, just a pocket knife, and well, we didn't even have a sleeping bag or anything, just a pocket knife and a bag full of grubs, yeah, and whatever, and a slingshot, and played around in the woods, yeah, or leftover wasteland, and there were actually a lot more wasteland around than these days. It's all built up with new buildings and yeah, family houses and industrial estates and stuff. So it's making it actually harder to do this sort of, let's say, going back to uncomplicated lifestyle, sort of, yeah. I mean, we're living in a normal world now, or not? No, it's not a normal world anymore. It's actually an artificial world in some cases, yeah. And people just well, going along, getting entertained with all sorts. I mean, you mentioned you're working for this. What is it? Twitter, YouTube, and whatever, Instagram people and Facebook. I guess it's sort of administration job you do in the forum stuff. But well, they get a pretty good impression on what's going on in the mind of the people. I guess maybe that's why you need a break yourself sometimes, or just do it, and you got the opportunity to just get out nearby and enjoy your breaks and just to cut out of all this madness, yeah? So I understand that, well, maybe I'm wrong, but I guess I understand that. Anyway, I wanted to talk about, yeah, the ability to do this sort of outdoor stuff. I mean, taking out all the gimmick stuff and the tools, it's just, all the equipment, I consider that basically as tools that makes it possible to cope with the environment and keep it on the bare minimum as possible, as much as possible. So, yeah, you need a knife, something to warm up, and a shelter thing, and something to cook to. I mean, yeah, and that's where we get into the ability of sustain in the outdoors. Yeah, first of all, in my experience, it's actually very difficult in the European countries, and I say the European countries. Yeah, what's considered the EU. Yeah, because what is it? The Spanish EU Commission sort of called a garden. Yeah. And everything else is wild and the jungle. That I guess being out of the garden several times, yeah, and actually for quite a while, like did this Balkan and Turkey trip on a motorbike for 3 months. I exclusively were able to stay outside basically, yeah, all the time, and camp out wherever I found a suitable spot, and without issue, yeah. And even noticed that lots of the local people, they just go out in a nearby field and you get all these burnt patches, for example, for campfires everywhere. Yeah, they're basically everywhere. Patches, if people want to make a tea or having a picnic or whatever, a break, they're making a fire, they set up their tea and having a snack. Yeah, and if they are full or pissed, they just sleep on the spot. Yeah, so it's no problem for them. It's just what they consider humanity and sort of what you do in generally. Yeah, so there are no rules on how to not to do that. Yeah, but in this what we call, well, I got told living in a garden. Yeah, the paradise, the European paradise. Everything is regulated and straightened up, and no weed is allowed to get into the onion line, yeah, and the whatever salad department is not allowed to get into the onions, and the weed is actually basically not welcome anyway. So everything is regulated, and that's going into the laws as well, yeah, like you're not allowed to do a campfire because of the global warming, yeah, and the emissions, yeah, you create. But, well, it's a different story, but it doesn't matter. I mean, if you got the industrial, they got their license to produce huge more pollutions and on a legal basis, yeah, but if you do a little cook fire for having a brew up of tea, you are doomed for being a criminal who, rapes nature. Yeah, sort of. I mean, that's what they try to inject in the people's mind. So as soon as someone sees some steam coming up, they call the police on their mobile and say, well, there's someone is illegally making a fire, you know, it's environment damaging and stuff. And well, it's pretty much the same in the UK as in Germany, and we are not legally allowed to do wild camping, yeah, and only in spots in proper campsites, yeah, where you have to pay a fee and using all the infrastructure like shower and cooking areas. And some places you're not allowed to put a fire on the ground. Yeah, some you are allowed, but not very many. And anyway, so it's all very regulated and everything on the money shame. Yeah. So when it comes to outdoor wild camping, yeah, or stealth camping, what I prefer, it's quite difficult to find a proper spot and set up. So it's pretty much the same in the UK. And on top of that, there's not much wild or unused area around anymore. Everything is owned, property is owned by someone. And in the best case, it's council owned or local authority owned, where they just leave it, or yeah. But if it's private owned, its purpose is to make money on it, with it, yeah. So it's very hard to find an unnoticed spot, and so that brings it up to getting into simple life. It's not easy to do the simple procedure. You're allowed to do that in Sweden and Finland and in parts of Denmark. They're not that, Norway. So it's more part of their lifestyle. going out and enjoy nature. Even they teach it up in school, but not in Germany, actually. I wouldn't recall there's anything where they put the youngsters out and experience appreciate nature as and what's the importance of it. Yeah, they're not doing that, and so the youngsters are not aware about it. And so, if they got the chance to get out, it's more an adventure, something something completely new, something they not experienced, and it's hyped up then. Yeah, it's a one-off experience, and they mainly combine it with the bad experience, having tick bites or mosquito bites, or getting stung by nettles, yeah, or having blisters or whatnot, and the mobile hasn't got Wi-Fi, and you know what I mean. And so it's very hard, but yeah, so I guess you're a bit on the lucky side that you got all this nearby. I mean, you probably learned by experience the way around your local laws and stuff, which is perfectly fine. And yeah, about the equipment. Basically, there isn't much needed. Yeah, I mean, all the outdoor stuff is very expensive and doesn't do basically what it's supposed to do, in my opinion. I mean, I did spend shitloads of money on good sleeping bags and really good equipment, yeah, lightweight equipment and stuff. But then I found out, even with this brand new material, it doesn't serve the purpose. Only, well, not the global purpose, only for one purpose, like being watertight or lightweight, yeah. But when it comes to insulation and facing the pure nature, like cold, rainy weather, just the weather conditions, you need a completely different approach, yeah, because this modern material doesn't stand up for it. Its only purpose is one, yeah, but not a multi-purpose, and that means you need a lot more equipment, and especially artificial equipment. Let's say even if you got a watertight jacket, it doesn't insulate you. Yeah, maybe it's lightweight and it's waterproof, but you're freezing in it, yeah, or sweating in it, and then you're freezing because the water can't get out, and it's huge expensive. I mean, look at all the Fjellreven stuff, and I don't know. There's lots of. I mean, many people, they get into the military stuff because it's cheap to fetch, and get hand onto it in second hand and just get it dirty and or ripped and just bin it, yeah, and dump it and get a new sort of kit. But when you're looking back into and that's what I actually tried to do, going back into the more traditional sort of equipment, yeah, which they actually, which was considered modern material at the time, yeah, like, let's say, just put it on like 100 years or so. They didn't have all this artificial materials, they had natural materials, and used them by tradition because it suits the job, yeah, for multiple events and, you know, for all sort of, for cold, wet, heat, and anything, yeah. So you only had, and the people that didn't have that much money, they had one or two, in our consideration, good kit, yeah. It was normal kit at the time, what they could afford or just made up, yeah, like waving and having wool and waving it up and felting it, and then that's it, yeah, and making out a blanket and wrapping up it for sleep. And yeah, they didn't have a sleeping bag, but just a large blanket which they could use as a cover and a cloak, and that's it. Yeah, so I try to in my videos, yeah, try to bridge that in a way, yeah, like reducing on kit, even if the single items are a little more expensive, not, yeah, but now they are more expensive, but more heavier than the modern equipment. But if you need lesser material or lesser items, you're on a pretty much the same weight than the ultralight, because when you got only the ultralight skins, yeah, you need insulation, additional insulation, and that builds up your weight on a rucksack for hiking and stuff. So it's actually pretty much leveling up, yeah. And when you drop all the fancy toys like a battery charger and all the electric part for a start, you're dropping quite a lot of weight, which other people add to their lightweight kit, yeah, for convenience. But in reality, it takes you away from the awareness around you, yeah. And so I never been really bored when I was just sitting in the woods. Yeah, I mean, even if I set up camp and did everything, there's always something to do, collecting firewood and stuff, but or chipping away, but just sitting there listening to your surroundings, it's just freeing up the mind, yeah, and it gets needs to get used to that sort of. I don't want to say nothing, but like emptying the your head somehow, yeah, and let things drop in. So to get an inner connection to the environment again, yeah, because we're not much different than the squirrels or whatever bloody rabbits and deers that walk around. We're just far away, and in reality we wouldn't sustain for very much or not for very long, unless we got our supplies with us, and because the knowledge of what we can eat is actually, I must admit, I came from the countryside. I know some of what I can eat, yeah, but it's very limited, yeah, my knowledge about them. For example, mushrooms, I don't know anything about mushrooms. And I bought a big book with everything eatable, plants and stuff, but it's study on its own, yeah. So generally, we don't know a lot, yeah. We wouldn't sustain for long term in outdoors, which humans usually, in the past, used to be able to, yeah, because they had a much more wider knowledge of all this, and we are just taking away from all that, and big time. So, what can I say? Back to the equipment. That's why I turned all into the wool stuff. Yeah, I mean, I must go back to the 80s, yeah, the early 80s. My mom, she actually had a knitting shop, yeah. Her dream was to have a knitting and hand making shop. So I made courses about spinning raw wool into, thread, like knitting wool, yeah. So, and did actually courses for young girls, who were interested into it, in natural dyeing, coloring the wool, cooking it up with onion scales, and for yellowish and greenish with other plants, and indigo and chinchilla. And what is the red? Is this chinchilla? I don't know. I think there are these red bugs where they dry them and stump them and powdering. Anyway, there's lots to do, and I did waving on myself, with the big waving wooden stuff. So I'm actually always been in making fabric, natural fabric. So I got a bit deeper understanding of it, yeah. And so that's why I thought, well, wool is a natural material, and it served people for hundreds of years and maybe thousands. And why not continuing doing that? And so, yeah, I had to spend a bit on money because I can't make it myself anymore. Yeah, and because I haven't got the tools for it. And so I bought this Loden wool, yeah, this Bavarian wool, and experimented with that. So, but it's not, well, it's watertight, well, waterproof up to a certain extent, yeah. But it's there's a canvas tarp coming in, and yeah. So just give you a quick overview. A canvas tarp, 3 by 3 meter, yeah, which can be converted to a tarp tent, as well as a bivouac bag, yeah. Combined with the plush paletka, which is a 2 by 2 meter square sheet canvas, which are made up, the Russian type, yeah, with a cloak ability, like a rain cover, a rain poncho, yeah, which can be used as a small tarp, a poncho, a ground sheet. I wouldn't use it specifically for ground sheet, but it can be used under a hammock, like as an under blanket, or not as an under blanket, but more an undercover, yeah, which cuts the wind chill out, because it's about the length of the body size when the hammock is laid out. So I got the 3 by 3 meter tarp on top. The plush paletka, the small tarp underneath of the hammock, yeah. And now because the hammock is, and I can roll it up, well, not roll it up, fold it up as a small padded sheet, yeah. If the main tarp is used as a tarp tent, I can make a mattress up, yeah. So I can fill it up with straw or whatever dry green I found around, and having a bit of mattress. So I don't necessarily need a felt or a skin as a sleeping pad, yeah. I mean, I got this larger dock bed, yeah, but I probably wouldn't carry that because it's getting too heavy, yeah. So that's why I thought, yeah, to the woolly sheets, yeah. The hammock, the woolly hammock, is a 3 meter length and 1 meter 50 wide, yeah, which serves as a hammock, as a blanket, can be folded up as a mattress, yeah. If you got in multiple layers, there's actually 6 layers. If you consider 50 centimeter as a sleeping pad wide, yeah, and fold up, so it's actually 6 layers. Additionally to the plush paletka sheet, which can be added up with leaves or whatever as an additional. So it's a pretty good sleeping pad, which gives additional insulation during the wool, which actually can cope with the moisture and condensation as well. And what else? Yeah, the Wetterfleck, yeah. The Wetterfleck is basically a cloak going back to the Roman time, yeah, which was a working coat, yeah, just like the medieval coat. It's a very similar shape, yeah, because that was just, well, sort of straighter, and that's the Roman style, and which they were actually adapting in the Bavarian, because they were very close to the Roman Empire at the time in the Alpine area, yeah, they were Catholic still. So anyway, they're using it as a traditional clothing, because it was a poor area, and similar to Scotland and Wales, yeah, like remote mountain people, yeah, and they had to make the best out of it. And in the lowlands, they were more modernized, and they could enjoy more luxury stuff and expensive stuff. But in the alpine or remote areas, people, yeah, they had to rely on what they got, yeah. And so that's where the tradition still bridging over to today's time. Unfortunately, this tradition still, well, let's say luckily, well, sadly, because it's more expensive now, but luckily it's actually were adapted by hunting and the folklore people, yeah, into the heritage. And but at the same time, because it's got out of fashion, it's got very expensive. And the only few shops you can or places you get them, it's basically in hunting shops or hunting departments, and they charge big money for it because it's on low production outputs, and therefore it's expensive to get hold onto. Yeah. On the other hand, it's high quality and it lasts for a long, long time. Yeah, and since in my case I don't need that every day. I mean, yeah, you see, it's over there. Oops, there on my anorak things. Yeah, well, I'm using them every day. Even if it's cold, just need a t-shirt, sling it over, and don't need just go out. And so it's very convenient stuff, and not very fashionable. But another thing is, they are all earth color, sort of gray, brown, greenish. Yeah, the greenish stuff. Well, the green stuff is mainly used by like the trade color of the hunting stuff. But I consider brown and gray the more camo ability during experience with the Hennessy hammocks, the nylon hammocks. What is the Canadian hammocks? I went for the brown. And when you are set up in the woods, yeah, which brings up for the useful part of it, the military camo, well, it's military, isn't it? It's awkward. And it doesn't really serve. I mean, you have to camo for the civilian as well, yeah? So the brown and the gray is more the natural environment color. And if you got natural lights shading onto it, especially if you're in the woods, it just disappears with the undergrowth. Yeah. Compared to the green is distinctive. Yeah. Every green got a distinctive color shade. It's not a mixed color. Brown is basically the color of all together. Yeah, sort of. If you mix all the colors, a part of black and white, all the colors together, you end up with a deep brown, sort of shit brown. And that's the best color, in my experience, you can have, because it blends in with every other color. Yeah, gray is good for, like stone and sort of deserted areas where there are no green or undergrowth or earth colors around. It's more so it's a good mix, yeah. And it just disappears. That's where maybe, the gray man stuff. Well, that's the idea of it, yeah. The other thing is, in modern life, if you come along and set up on wild camping, or just walk around, yeah. And if you walk around with all the camo stuff on it, all the military stuff, people spot you from miles away, yeah, because it's not a common sight. And I tried it. I said the MOD Gore-Tex stuff on a motorcycle, yeah, because someone gave it to me in the UK, just it was brand new, just fallen off the lorry from the MOD, yeah, out of Bryce Norton. Had shitloads of it. Even the sleeping bag, that's brand new, just from the MOD. But if you walk around, you want to be going unnoticed, like an old git or just a weekend having a walk out, yeah, not too big, geared up. If you got all this colorful stuff on it, yeah, big blue, red rucksack, yeah, so all the fancy stuff on it, someone spotting you because you not belong there, and you're not, and they can spot you miles away, yeah, even in a dense wood, the red spot or blue spot just picking out, and even bright green, yeah. You're picking that. If you got a tent or a tarp which is just normal outdoor green, yeah, you're gonna spot that. Yeah, because about the shape, the straight, even shape just picking out. And or sticking out, yeah. So anyway, and people getting aware about you, they're taking notice of this colorful stuff, yeah, regardless if it's camo or colorful. They notice something is not common, yeah. So they may keep an eye on you, yeah, because they're local people and they don't want strangers around, and you are a stranger, yeah. But if you just stay, well, that's my experience, yeah. Just having this dual, no brand equipment, you're going unnoticed most of the time, yeah. And if you bump into some local people, first of all, you're not appear to be someone who got a huge amount of expensive gear on it, which is colorful and outdoor stuff and adventurous, yeah, or carelessly, and you're not camo. Yeah, camo is sort of someone doing war games in the woods, yeah, like let's call the police. They may got some hidden weapons or they are up to something, you know. But if you just, well, sort of, yeah, try to get a mix between a tramp, a bum, and someone who's just out there, yeah. And yeah, it's depending on when you get into chat with local people. The first impression is when you're open to them and you're not appear like, oh, I don't want to talk with you. Yeah, I'm invisible. Get you, I don't know. Or, oh, you being, people, there's psychology in it as well. And I'm taking that part of the whole thing. And yeah, disappearing into the undergrowth, having this unnoticed colors. When the light is shading on it, you're going unnoticed. And even in spots where it's fairly highly populated, yeah, for a night you can still, I mean, I've been staged or wild camping in areas that were just 5 meters away from a jogging path, yeah. People that are just like that. They got their bloody electronic and time-taking things. Just they don't take in notice about anything a part of their whatever initial visibility channel. Yeah. So, but if something is out of place, like a colorful tent or rucksack or anything that's bright, yeah, be it camo. If there's camo, could be dangerous. If it's colorful, it's just, the human eye just catching on to this bright. It's well, in our gene pool, isn't it? It's just survival instinct. And so people taking notice, even if it's unconscious, and even if they jogging, there was something. And then later on, if they reflect on it, say, well, if they are maybe 10 or 20 meters further on, they may think, oh, there was something. I may, so they, and then they may just take their phone and call the police or something. Yeah. So that's something to consider or be aware of what people are like. Yeah. And it's a sort of modern survival instinct out in the woods, yeah. And I never ever had trouble. I mean, yeah, occasionally when I was set up especially there in Finland, yeah, I was setting up and thought, well, there's nobody coming along. These kids actually had this game and chasing, but they didn't notice me like because it's part of their average outdoor experience. Yeah, being outside, there's nobody bothers you if someone's sitting in the woods and just enjoying his own time because he's acting responsible. Yeah, so just live and let live. Yeah, but in our European garden, like regulated straight garden, yeah, everything is a bit more different, and people. I don't know. It's so it makes it hard But yeah, you're the lucky one. Got Wales around the corner. I'm not. I have to do quite long journeys to get out, and especially here in my area, it's very close to high industrial areas like the Ruhr district, yeah, and was the old coal mining and metal industry. It's a bit like Manchester, yeah, and everything else is just farm fields, plain fields. In the 70s, people had financial bonuses for cutting down fruit trees and straighten up. I mean, if you look in the UK, you got all these stone walls and hedges, yeah, lined up, so the fields are actually squared out in little patches, yeah, and sort of guarded by or surrounded by hedges and bushes, yeah, lines of. So that used to be here as well. Yeah, every farmer had a little bit of patch and squared it up, and they actually made use of the willows. They were actually growing in lines, yeah, and chopped them down and used them making up for baskets and stuff in the old time. But then in the 70s, they chopped them all down to enlarge the fields for the EG, which was the European, was the pre-European Union, yeah, and it was a European trade union, but so that made it all, the whole landscape were actually straightened out, yeah, and to allow bigger machines and more larger fields, yeah. And it's not like in the UK where you got all these bumpy hills, yeah, where people had their sheeps. We got really plain sides and it's all flat, and there's not much hideout. And on the other hand, you won't find drinkable water. I mean, you may got some streams, but because of the agriculture, it's all pesticides, and it's always getting me a bit. Yeah, I know how to produce my drinking water, but I'm getting very iffy about what water pool I'm taking my drinking water out. Even if it looks suitable, it's you got all the nitrat and poison, well, chemical stuff in it, and it's very hard to get rid of. Yeah, in that case, it's easier to ring a bell for someone and ask for water just to fill you up your bottle, yeah, or your canteen while you're waiting outside. Most people just fill it up on the tap water and give it back to you and say, yeah, thank you. And that worked for me actually in Denmark quite well. And actually, people, I came across some house, yeah, or farm, and the Danish landscape is very lowland, yeah, and very close on the water, on the sea level, yeah. So the underground water is basically unsuitable, yeah. It's what's it called, brack water. It's like bad water, yeah. And the people that are living there, I just knocked on the door on the farm and asked for water, and they said, well, you can't have water out of a tap. It's just bad water. It's just dodgy, yeah. You can't drink it. And so they gave me a bottled water and just filled it up with my canteen, yeah. Said that's the only water they can have. And that's in Denmark, yeah. And I know from one other places where I had my mates in the hippie community, yeah, where they played music and all sorts. They actually had to have a water hose from the next farm to their own farm. Well, it was a little cottage, yeah. Just to have drinking water because their own well wasn't suitable. Yeah, so it's water is a big issue, and so in my case, I have to travel a bit further. I mean, there are wooded area in Germany, but they are like entertainment parks, more or less, yeah. And they're very regulated where you are allowed to walk. Yeah, everything else is then nature resort, yeah, and controlled by, yeah, hunters, not hunters. What is the wood? You know what I mean? The sheriffs in the woods, you know, and so they call the police, and they're allowed to fine you when they caught you up camping, yeah, which is a bit a gray area. If you're bivouacking, camping is having a tent and an enclosed compartment like a tent, yeah, with a ground floor, a tent shape, yeah. This is a camping. But if you're bivouacking, it's gray zone and it's not regulated. As long as it doesn't appear like a camp, permanent or long-term camp, it's just a shelter against the environment. Cold, water, well, rain and heat, yeah, you need shade, otherwise you haven't got water. So yeah, my trick is, if I get caught up, yeah, it's for my own well-being. Yeah, I don't want to cause trouble for anyone else. So take care about myself. I'm short on water and there's not much water around. So I have to have a rest. And I later on in the evening when it's cooler, in a hot area, yeah, I can say later on I move on. I'm just having a rest. The kid sleeps in the day out, and when it's cooler, I move on. Yeah, so most of people, yeah, they're fine with that. And I did that even in Greece and on private land, yeah. It was a field, yeah, and some bushes around and the surrounded trees, yeah, the willows, and with the hangover, so I had my hammock underneath in the shade, yeah. But someone noticed about the noise of my motorcycle and came along and actually checked along the tree line if there's someone in there, and and then I actually went out into the open and said, well, hello, I'm just sleeping out here and it's too hot and I need drink. And he said, yeah, okay. And then he went his way. Yeah, so it's about of how to, and about back to bivouacking. A tarp is a bivouac, yeah? You're just having an open shelter. It's not a tent. It maybe get iffy in a tarp shelter setup, but that's what you probably would put up in more colder and really wet condition. And in this situation, there's less likely someone walking around in the woods and checking for people, yeah? So they wouldn't trip over to you. So, and even if someone turn up, yeah, it's so cold and wet, I have to close the bivouac down a bit more. But yeah, if you can see, it's not a tent, it's a tarp, yeah? It's a bivouac. And if you haven't got all this fancy outdoor kit like an air mattress and all this fancy stuff, you're not camping. That's something people associate with camping: sleeping mat, a tent, sleeping bag. And if you only got a blanket and a rolled up whatever sleeping pad, yeah, which is a woolen blanket, you are not, it's not like an outdoor guy. It's someone, oh yeah, all right, he makes the best out of what he got, yeah? So it's a blanket and not a sleeping pad and not a dedicated camp equipment, yeah? So that's a benefit of stealth camping. First of all, not being noticed while you're moving around or into the woods, and not being detected by your kit and by your behavior, yeah. Not being noisy, obviously, is the first part. Not partying, well, that's the other one. Camp people, they tend to do party because it's a one-time off and yeah, have a drink and it's a good time, But stealth camping, it's just, yeah, reconnecting to nature. And you can move miles, hundreds of miles without being noticed and being outdoor. And I rarely tripped over people for days. Yeah, and in the most remote areas, like when I didn't bump into people for days, sometimes 2-3 days, I didn't bump into anyone. Yeah, and then suddenly, and that wasn't someone likely minded I bumped into, but not like, or maybe the odd day walker. Yeah, but in that case, they won't see you in a campsite. They only will see you with your pack on. Yeah, and you say, hello, I'm another walker, hiker, yeah, and how is the weather, and what was the weather like, and where's the next shop, yeah, so they're helpful with the locals, so you not appear of being someone, if you try, yeah, you can look a bit rough, but not like a drunken bump, yeah, or with plastic bags. I mean, yeah, sorry for them, and but they got lost. They're lost people, sorry. It's not their fault most of the time. And yeah, it's a pity. They didn't learn what is it? Being proud about themselves. They lost their own proud, sort of, yeah, because they were just misused by society in my case. Well, that's a different story, but so where were we? Cooking. Open fire. These days, it's almost impossible. Yeah, and a part of in countries where it's more common and people just do it because they're not using artificial cooking or gas stoves, yeah, and all fancy kids that just light a fire, put a pot on, and that's it, yeah. So they don't need to carry a lot of equipment. In Turkey, I found this Turkish samovar, yeah, which is basically a tube with a little opening door, yeah, and it's a bit like a samovar. You can put a pot on with a chimney, yeah, and having basically a stove like in a big, let's say a big bean can, yeah. A large bean can, like a 6 or 7, 12-liter bean can, yeah. Let's say a 6-liter bean can with a lid and with a chimney on it. So you got a surface where you can put your kettle on, and that's what they're using with charcoal, yeah. And cooking, that's their cooking, their outdoor store. They're cooking on it and having tea with all families as a picnic, yeah. And they're cheap as crisp. I mean, you can get them on the internet for 50 quid. Yeah, they're stainless steel coming from Turkey. They're maybe a bit rough made, but they're not meant for being high quality. They're meant for being used, and they're cheap enough to replace them after some time, and you get them everywhere. I actually missed to get one myself when I was in Turkey. I was so limited on the space on a bike, so I didn't bought one. And didn't came across one anyway. But well, so alcohol stove, yeah, this is a bit, or just a cooking fire in hobo. The hobo is a perfect cooking equipment, in my opinion. Yeah, it's a small container like a can, where you can actually multi-usable for wood sticks, and like an alcohol stove for convenience. If you are in a shelter, yeah, you can put it on a table and don't cause a fire. And it's in outdoors, in wet condition, you got a little compartment where you can have a controlled fire, and using sticks and twigs as well if needed, yeah. But then you have to be careful not to produce too much steam, or not being too close to some populated area. And you can't use that for overnight fire. Yeah, the compartment's just too small. And if you want an overnight fire, and that's what I'm saying, I never slept to an open fire. Well, I did in this shelter in Finland, yeah, where there was a proper stove thing, yeah. It was actually meant for the whole party crew and heating in the winter, but it was a dedicated place for that. But with a log fire, you can't do that. I'm not in Germany. You would cause fire alarm in no time. And in some places in the natural resource, they actually got fire drones and hidden cameras all over the place. Even in the interest of the you won't don't underestimate the hidden cameras, and they got SMS chips, well, like mobile chips for SMS notification in it. And I had one myself and sold it off. And they are in the woods in Germany everywhere. Hunters use it for tracking the behavior of wildlife, yeah, so they can see where they can shoot a specific ram, yeah, or deer, male deer, and or foxes or pigs, so they know their behavior, their walkways, yeah, and check them. And if you come across, yeah, it's like a camera trap, and it takes the pictures and sends it right away to the mobile of someone who did set that up, and they control them every few days, replacing the batteries. Yeah, some have a solar panel with it, but most of them, they get checked regularly and replace the chip and the memory card and the batteries. And it's in mainly in spots surrounding where hunters got their patch. They are allowed, well, they're renting, well, it's a lease, yeah, they got a lease for a certain area in the woods which they are allowed to do the hunting, yeah, not in their neighbor's patch. So they're controlling it, and so it's very hard. Yeah, and if you set up like a tent, you risk of having them in your neck, yeah, in the middle of the night. They're just coming out with a rifle and say, well, you're not allowed here, I'm not permitted to take you to police, and beep, 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 beep. You don't want that, yeah, causing too much hassle. And if you got then a hatchet or an axe, then it comes to what tools you carry. If you got a huge outdoor knife, yeah, like a blade, like you're most likely they taking it away, and the more expensive it was, the more it hurts you, and you'll never get it back. Yeah, a hatchet, heavy. Yeah, I know it's easy to replace, and a convenience for just chopping firewood. But then, do you really need a lot of firewood? Yeah, do you need a saw? Yeah, if you want to build a permanent bivouac, some sort of, yeah, eventually. But then maybe one of this wire thing will do. Yeah, honestly, I'm carrying the outdoor knife, which is just all right. Yeah, the Carl things Longstrom, I don't know, the one I covered, yeah, in the videos, just for chopping. It's a bushcraft knife, and I'm not having it on the belt usually. Well, if I know I'm at the camp, I put it maybe on the belt, but usually I just put it somewhere in reach. But instead of an axe, yeah, you've seen I got this kukri. It's a 10-inch blade, and it's 11 mil, almost half an inch thick spine, yeah, which is quite a lot of weight, and with no effort just splits every dry wood you want, yeah. And for green wood, it's just going through like butter, yeah. And if you got finger thick branches, it's like a clean cut. And so it's just stuffed straight in the rucksack, and I'm not keeping it open. Yeah, and I use it for doing tent packs, yeah, or clearing the branches on a tree where I want to put my hammock up, and just the few branches just shave them off, and to have a free space. And but usually I only needed to sharpen some packs, because I'm not carrying packs. Yeah, I'm not for the weight, and because usually I don't need packs because I'm not using a tent. Yeah, and if you're using the tarp, I just need a few sticks, which I'm just dump or don't carry them. So it's just a rough stick pointing and hit them in the ground and just leave them there. So it saves me another part of the equipment to carry, but that's why I need the kukri. And yeah, if you got that lying around and got caught in the woods with these tools, it's not a knife, the kukri, it's a chopper. It's not a machete, it's a chopper. It's a chopper to replace an axe, because an axe is too heavy and inconvenience. That's why I got this one. It fits in your rucksack. You have to talk to the people and explain it. That's how far it goes these days, yeah? Surviving between in the gray area, yeah? Ooh, a long video and non-stop. Yeah, I'm stopping here. I call that the outdoor experience for you for today. Impression on what I'm up to with my kit. And yes, you're right. When it comes to making videos, at some points everything is told. Yeah. So I don't like to repeat myself or chewing up everything or recycle things. I mean, you may notice in this video I'm telling about certain stuff once, and then that's it. Yeah, I maybe come back to some of the bits and showing it in the video, like how I'm using it, but not. It's talked about, and that's, it's more like a series of stuff. I don't have to repeat myself every time. So that's why it's hard to make new videos, especially when I haven't got the ability to get out whenever I would like to. Yeah, I really have to take my kit and I need some extra money. I have to get to the train station and get out, and it takes about at least 2 hours just to get out. Yeah, with waiting time. So with the penguin, so it's more like once I'm doing that, I trying to make the best out of it, like at least a week, better 2 or 3, yeah, to make it worthwhile. And that's why I'm drugging. I mean, the short videos I'm doing them in the local park, yeah, trying to be very neutral with the background, yeah. And well, that's for so far for now. Hope you enjoy. I think it's gonna be a bit longer today, but yeah, it's chatting only.